hear you loud and clear. And we just want to keep it real this morning. Get some real answers in. So y'all give our panelists a round of applause this morning. And we hope that we set in the atmosphere each year that we can really be transparent and open, and y'all can just kind of discuss whatever y'all want to discuss. And we can really hit home on the things that we're dealing with. So just feel free, whatever question or statement you have on your mind, please feel free to share. But first question that we're dealing with today. It could be said that your NYVMC worship experience is less who you really are and more just a 4-day emotional response. Let me read that again. It could be said that your NYVMC worship experience is less who you really are and more just a 4-day emotional response. And so we want to get you guys this take on that. To kick off the discussion, any takers? Come on up. Yeah, you come on up to the front. Just tell us your name and we'll kick the discussion off.
Jerome, turn that mic up. So they can come to you. They say they will come to you. Like that.
Tell us your name, where you're from.
All righty. My name is Jarrett. I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And I think there could be some truth to that, especially if it's for instance, myself, this is a first time experience for me. And there's a lot going on, so I'm just kind of feeling everything out. But I think it can start off an emotional response, but that emotional response will kind of like there's different emotions that come with that.
Okay.
And so you start kind of examining yourself during that process. And then the emotional response then becomes, well, am I really enjoying this? Why am I really enjoying this? And then, is this really in my heart to continue to do? And then if you realize, yes, it is, then it becomes something more. It becomes more of who you are. You start kind of figuring that out.
All right. Very good. Thank you, my brother. Let me put you here, Alden. That way you can kind of talk to them and the panel at the same time.
Alden Hall from Nashville, Tennessee. I think also as he said, it could be a lot of truth to it, but speaking, really what's catching my attention is an emotional response. For me, after my first year at camp, my entire life changed because it was, just things that are just exciting. Everything can be exciting, especially when when you just young. Everything it just kind of got, born, and you can get in a lot of trouble just showing things, just giving things emotion, and giving things too much attention. And in that time, I think that was my freshman year of high school, and I didn't have any kind of like goals for my life. Like if you asked me what I wanted to do that first year, it was nothing. Like I was just like, I'm just here, I'm just doing whatever, But I think when I found out how important that having a spiritual relationship was after my first year, like just my daily routines changed. What became important to me changed. And, after that, when I came here, it wasn't just a response. It was just, this is just what I do all the time. Like this is what's in me. So when it say just an emotional response, you know, you at a football game, you get excited, yeah, you know, but then when you leave, it's like, you know, you're not really as excited anymore. That's not what I want my walk to be with Christ. I don't want it just to get up and down. You know, I want to be able to maintain a consistent high. And when I'm low, how do I get back? I don't want to just have oh, this happened, so now I can feel okay to do what I need to do. My mindset made it to where this is what's most important to me, my relationship with God, and my life is gonna work around that instead of what's exciting and what's not. But that's kind of what I got to say about that.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brandon Prince. I'm from Houston, Texas. And what I wanted to say was that this camp should be an emotional response. It shouldn't be 4 days, but it should make you respond emotionally. I feel like that's an important part of what church is appealing to the emotions of, you know, the members of the church. But I feel like it's a challenge for members of church back home for us to keep that consistent. And I feel like right after the devotion ended yesterday, and that was a very powerful moment for me, because for the people that were here afterwards, after the devotion actually finally ended, we were just in here just basically just praising God, you know, on our own, you know, just doing what we wanted to do, which was praising God. And right after that ended, when we all went our separate ways, the devil was so busy, and it was so apparent to me, like, how frustrated he was that we, you know, put aside our, you know, what everyone else thought about us, and we just really praised God for, you know, what he's done in our lives, individually and collectively. And so it should be an emotional response, and I feel like a lot of people, especially in the Church of Christ, don't fully understand, you know, when people shout and, you know, raise their hands and, like, cry in church, is because, you know, people go through things in life, you know, especially with young folks, you know, being their first time actually getting a taste of life is something that's new to them. And if they respond emotionally, that's something that should be encouraged and nurtured, you know, on a daily basis, not just on Sundays, not just once a year when we come to NYVMC, but something that, you know, an emotional response should be encouraged, you know, through relationships that we build with each other, you know, on a daily basis. So I feel like we should be challenged to take the emotional response that we experience here to our individual churches throughout the nation, and I feel like it can be built, you know, within our youth, so that when they're coming here, it's not anything new, then it's who they are, not just NYVMC. So that's all I got.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say a lot of people are looking at this as like negative, like this is not who you really are, it's just an emotional response, but who we really are sinners. So this 4-day emotional response should be, we come sinners, we come here and learn more about God and grow spiritually and leave better. So this is actually positive, that it's less who you really are, because we don't want to be who we really are, we want to be like God.
That was pretty good. Well said, well said. Anybody else before I allow the panel to chime in on this? I give all these young people a hand. What y'all got? What y'all got? Any about? But they left y'all speechless after that, huh?
I will say, what we do here this week is a very powerful thing. The praise and the singing and the worship and the lifted hands, that's such a powerful thing that a lot of us don't get back home. But the thing is, we might not get it back home, but why don't we still give it? Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? Because a lot of us, we are looking for that song leader to take me there, but we're supposed to enter his gates with thanksgiving. Enter his course with praise. And so, not that people shouldn't encourage you, but if you need to be coached to worship, that ain't really worship. Are y'all hearing? You're just reacting instead of acting. And so we need to make sure that when we go home, like I've even talked to my kids a couple of months after camp, like we hype. Y'all about to go home and hype for about a month. But come November, we go back to being stagnant. What happened to the NYVMC praise that y'all were giving? And so the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you get in the Word. Praise is nothing if you ain't got no Word in you. All that, that's just being happy. When you're happy, you cry. When you're sad, you cry. You need the Word. The Word is what really changes your life. Worship isn't a moment, it's a lifestyle. Worship isn't a song. Worship is not lifted hands. Worship is spiritually bowing down. Worship is spiritual humility and saying, listen, God, you are everything. God, you are what I need. God, I am nothing and I need you. That's what true worship is. And a lot of times I think we've made worship a song and not truly a lifestyle. It got to be who you are. And so a 4-day emotional response, yes, but it should be the start of something that you do in your everyday life.
I wanted to say that everybody is not going to start out at the same place. I specifically remember when Alden came. And it just does my heart good because you were in my making of the group. And I think I helped make you greater. But I remember Alden was in my making of the group, and he was he is not the same Alden that he started out being when he first started coming to camp. I remember. He was very quiet, very reserved, and now you look at Alden, and it's like he's a whole totally different person. Personality-wise, spiritually, all of that. He's a totally different person. And I said that to say because things like this can sometimes be your start to you blossoming into something else. And it's not totally bad that all of y'all are coming and you don't feel the same way somebody else may feel, or you're not caught up in the spirit, or you're not that. It's okay. But if this is what it takes for you to get there, by all means, keep on coming. And maybe it'll have a residual effect. What the impressive thing is the residual effect. It's not what you are when you're here. It's what happens when you leave here. It's the residual effect, what goes on. I'm way in Dallas and seeing Alden on the news way in the city he lives in. And I'm looking like, it almost brought me to tears, like, oh my God, this is the same kid that was in my group that wasn't hardly sang and wasn't hardly do nothing. That's probably why we lost Alden. Because you wasn't sang and ain't been in my group since. But anyway, it's the residual effect, and I think that is the main purpose of what those who put this camp together. They want y'all to walk away. And if you ain't got it right now, they want you to walk away and for it to develop in you. It's one thing in having a temporary praise. What you want is a permanent praise. You want a permanent worship. Worship doesn't just take place in the four walls of a church building. Worship takes place every day. It's a way of life. And so we just want to encourage you, just be willing to open yourself up to the Spirit. And if this weekend is what it takes for you to open yourself up to the Spirit and let God use you, do it. And then maybe one day we'll all be like Alden. Love you, Alden. I see that in you. That's a great thing. That's a great thing.
Okay, so y'all have no idea what you're experiencing this weekend. You see the facilitators, we talk about it all the time. We wish we would have had an outlet like this at this magnitude, at this level, where you can touch and rub elbows with the people that's on this stage and those that are out there who brought you here on another level, and just dig deep into those issues that you're dealing with. I know there's a young man who I brought with me, pretty close to me. Matter of fact, he lives in the same house with me. 4 or 5 years ago, I couldn't get him to open his mouth.
Yep.
But he met you. He came close with them and said, okay, this is okay. I see like-minded individuals who, it's not just my dad, it's not just my cousins, it's people all over the country who share the same common goal. And I'm reminded of God's children by the rivers of Babylon. They asked this question: how can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Yeah. When you leave here, a lot of you are going to a strange land, and you're going to deal with some circumstances, some situations that you may not even know that's coming your way. And some might hit you like a Mack truck, and they come at you. But then they say, we remember Zion.
Yeah.
We need you to remember what you learned at this camp when you go back to the strange land. If you go back to the strange land, if you remember all these songs and these discussions, Desi preaching his heart out, you meeting somebody who having similar situations, and when you get out there to the strange land, it won't be a 4-day just emotional high. It'll be something that's transforming your life and shaping you and molding you to what God would have you to be. But you got to remember these things as you develop as a young person. Does that make sense? So we want y'all to get that. This is powerful. It shouldn't just be an emotional high. It should be something that's transforming your life and grooming you into something that God would have you to be, so you can help transform other lives in a strange land. You got that?
I just want to read something. This question, I think Jesus already answered it in Matthew chapter 13. I'm just going to read it, and then you internalize it. The seed is being sown here. Listen then to what the parable of the sower means. When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in their heart. This is the seed sown along the path. The seed falling on rocky ground refers to someone who hears the word at once, receives it with joy, but since they have no root, they last only a short time, 4 days. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. Strange land. The seed fallen among the thorns refer to someone who hears the word, but the worries of this life and deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. Go back to where you came. But the seed fallen on the good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop yielding 160 or 30 times what was sown.
Yeah, there it is. That's the word.
That was powerful. Say no more. Say no more. That was powerful. Next question. Some feel that church today is not relevant. Do you have ideas? If so, what are you doing in your congregations to cultivate and implement your God-given vision? And I'll read that again. Some feel that church today is not relevant. Do you have ideas? If so, what are you doing in your congregations to cultivate and implement your God-given vision? Come on up, my brother.
Come on through, son.
My name is Malachi Kennedy. I'm from the Eastside Congregation in Nashville, Tennessee. One reason why I feel like people feel like the church is not relevant today is because we're not together. And in Nashville, you have many congregations that are here, there, and like all of our congregations, all of our memberships have this downward trend. And so somebody presented the idea of, why don't we just merge congregations? But then, our leadership start clashing, and people, we have conflicting ideas. And so one thing I feel like would make us more relevant and more powerful in our influence is that if we come together and we realize that we are a body, not just a congregation, and just come together in that way, and our influence will grow.
Any others? Any takers? I like what he said though, as he's coming up. I think a lot of times we, like you said, the body is bigger than our congregations. And man, just the resources that we're able to have when we pull what we have together with other members of the body to be able to do impactful things in our communities and even help the church to grow. So appreciate that, Malachi. All right.
My name is Matthew Kennedy. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I also attend Eastside Church of Christ as well. From my perspective, a lot of the reason why people feel like church is not relevant is because we misunderstand what church actually is. Like, the church is the people. Like, it's not just you coming to church in worship service. Like, so with that, I'm trying to instill with a lot of different youth in my congregation that, you know, like once we leave here, like we're still the church, like we still need to be talking to each other, holding each other accountable, and, you know, just maintaining what you learn in worship service outside, because like people say sometimes you're the only Bible people read. So if they see you outside of church not, you know, portraying what you learn in church, they're gonna be like, well, what you're doing isn't important, like you're wasting your time going. So I think once we realize that we're the church each and every day of our lives, no matter where we go, people will see that it's more relevant.
This is just something that I know a lot of people that I try to, you know, get to have those conversations with me. Sometimes the biggest thing, just from a lot of people that I know, is the atmosphere, they know so much pain from dealing with people that are in the church. You know, whether it be talking about them, judging them. Sometimes they won't even get to where they'll have a conversation with me because it's just like, oh, y'all the, you know, they'll say, y'all the worst ones out there. Like y'all, they won't even get to the point where we can say, you know, well, what about this? Like, nah, I don't even want to hear that. Y'all, you know, somebody did this and that. So I think sometimes it's just even what people think about, you know, when they think of coming and being around, even just spending time with us. Sometimes it's just, you know, they don't even think of positive things. And, you know, when it gets to that just, it hurts me because, you know, we can do so much better just as far as the little things, just little time and, you know, simple things, calling people and, you know, just things like that. But a lot of people that I've come in contact with, they won't even go there just because of the, you know, how people will, you know, how they felt judged, or they just felt like, you know, they just been already like condemned, you know what I'm saying? But that's just something to think about.
How y'all doing? I think one thing that a lot of the churches have forgotten about is that big piece we call evangelism. Right. And one thing that I'm concerned about is that we say we want to invite other people to the church and see what we do, but then when we get there, we're so judgmental, they don't want to come back. I think that's one of the problems. But ideas about how to get the church better, I think a lot of people don't feel that they have a place in their own congregation. You know, a lot of people just come to church every Sunday, they sit, they go through the motions, and they leave, and there's nothing for them to do. And so one thing that we're trying to do at my church is they asked me to kind of redesign how ministry should work. I think that each ministry in the church has a task. Each ministry should have a task of evangelism, but each ministry should be doing something each month, whether it's within our own community, whether it's, you know, out in a different state, but something has to be done. We can't just keep sitting there. I mean, I looked at our list. We got 25 ministries, and maybe only 3 of them are active. That's a concern for me. And, you know, we say we do all these things, but we don't. And I'm tired of putting up a front each Sunday as if we do all these things and nothing is getting done. I mean, if we're not here to save souls, what are we doing?
My name is Jasmine Joyner. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Kind of piggybacking off of what others have said, a lot of us have forgotten that the church is not these four walls. The church is a family. We are the community, and a lot of us have sat in these four walls, again, have judged people constantly, forgetting that we are in the same spot. We're still in elementary stage, and we haven't gotten to that point where we're eating meat yet. We're still drinking milk. And when we try to bring people into the community, from the community into these four walls, we forget where we came from. So something that we're trying to implement at Bell Street, we are a very, very young congregation. We're trying to bring people from the community, our leaders from the community, police officers. We're dealing with so much these days. The Black community is constantly dealing with violence on violence. A lot of people have these stereotypes about police officers. We're trying to bring police officers into the community of the church so that we can have an example for those outside of the church, so that we can show people that we don't need to fight back with violence. We don't need to be the ones that are showing other people that, no. We need to be the ones to have that voice of reason that says, this is a human being just like you. They have a soul just like you do. We need to go out to the community. We need to reach the mayor. We need to reach the police officers. We need to reach the teachers, the principals. We need to go out to the community and get those people into the church, because we're a community. We are a family. We have to reach the people out in the world, and we can't do that sitting in these four walls judging each other based off of what we see. We have souls. Everybody in this world has a soul that needs to be saved. And if you cannot see that soul, if you cannot see the person's soul, then you need to sit back and let somebody else do it. Hey.
Anybody else? Is your hand up? Are you shouting or what? Brother Jay Reed, y'all give him a hand as he come forward.
Walk by faith, not by sight. I'm going to keep it real. Some feel that the church today is not relevant. Taking it from a different perspective, the world outside looking in, if we're having all of these conflicts, troubles, judging each other in the church, fighting each other in the church, why be relevant? How can you be relevant? The church is the foundation of the world. The church is supposed to be that strong foundation that doesn't tether when storms arise in the world. That's why the world's falling apart so much now, because the church is crumbling down. God has actually given us the ability to see this. Like, everyone in this room is seeing that there are things in their own congregation that are going on that we're trying to fix, but people don't want to actually realize, oh, we have a serious problem. And by the church actually being this foundation, on the dollar bill it says, "In God we trust." But I haven't heard 45 say God anywhere since he was... I'm just keeping it real. I'm just keeping it real. God trumps Trump. There we go. God trumps the world. And the world is God. The world is God. God created us so we can further his kingdom, to further his word, to further the belief, to further the church, to grab more souls to Christ. Not so that we can come do a front and turn people away. We shouldn't be turning people away who don't know how to come dress for church. We shouldn't turn people away who have come actually seeking. You don't know what people have been through. You could have almost died. Someone cussed you out on Tuesday. Someone almost shot you on Wednesday. Something else happened Thursday through Saturday. You come to church on Sunday hoping that someone can lift you up. So I hope that the church can be relevant. We need to make that imprint again so that the church is relevant in the world today. Not Trump.
Amen. What I want to say about all that is, and I'll let them chime in, into y'all young people. And then one of the questions is, if so, what are you doing in your congregation to cultivate and implement your God-given vision? First of all, I want to say that Jesus is the standard, okay? Jesus is the standard, and for this generation, for all of us, we have to hold Jesus as the standard for who we are and what we are about. Y'all hear me? When Jesus, the interesting thing, I think I say all the time, if he was to come here today and start doing what he did in the Bible times, he'd probably get the fellowship from. Because even in his times, he would be sitting down with sinners, right? And they like, what in the world is he doing? They missed it, you know what I'm saying? Or he would be talking to the woman at the well, and everybody comes back and they're like, he's talking to that Samaritan, you know what I'm saying? And it's interesting, the idea that the religious people had in those days, and then what Jesus did, that this really disrupted that, because he was like, I'm here to save the lost. You know, and that's what our purpose is, and to be relevant in our communities, in the city, in the town. Man, you got to get out of these four walls. And I think we've dressed church up. You know, we come with our suits and our ties on, and we have a whole misunderstanding of what the Bible is talking about when it's talking about us as people of God who know God, who live for God, who's trying to share this good news of the gospel with people who are lost, because he saved me in spite of me. And that's beautiful news to somebody who's out on the street that's not dressed up in a three-piece suit on Sunday morning, you know. And so our challenge and my challenge to you guys is, as you step into these roles, as you evangelize, be who God called you to be, and let's get rid of all the fluff and the waste and the stuff that Satan has made the church to be, and let's get down to the bare basis of what God has called us to be, and we will be relevant, because a relevant word is the fact that I'm a sinner, I'm not worthy, and Jesus came from heaven and died on the cross so I could be saved from my sins. That's relevant to anybody, and that's the message. That's what I just wanted to share.
That's one, two. There we go. I have a couple of quick points. Number one, I think the devil has our focus off. There's a lot of warring in the church. He has us fooled to believe that our own brothers and sisters are now the enemy. I think that's one main problem that's going on. And also, we're guilty of a lot of people just sitting back wondering what the church can do for me. What can the church do for me? How can the church help me? That's a problem in the mentality that a lot of people have. I have something that I call the employee versus the family member mentality. Like if you work at McDonald's as an employee, somebody comes to you and says, hey, I need help. Certain problems, you're going to go to the owner or the manager and you're going to push it off on them because it's their business, they're the owner or the manager. If your last name was McDonald and you worked at McDonald, it becomes your problem because that's your family. In the church, we look at church like a 9 to 5. We clock in, we work in the church, and when people need help, oh, Brother Frank, she need $5 because he's the preacher or he's the elder. Versus, you know what? I'm a child of God. That's my dad. I'm going to help this person with what they need. So we have to see it more of a family versus I'm an employee in the church and I just work here, and then when I leave here, I'm done until I come back on Sunday or Wednesday or whatever. So I think that will help the church be more relevant.
So y'all young people, y'all like to keep it real, right? Y'all do? Keep it real? Okay. Can we just say, because the church means the called out, right? We're the church. All right, but are we really being the church? So here we go. What I've seen back in the Texas area and then traveling around is that we start to lose a generation because in the body, the church is the body, right? The bride of Christ. We start to lose a generation, and we've lost several people, and they left. Have y'all seen that in your congregation, that you get certain, like, college age and be like, "Psh, I'm gone." Have y'all seen that? You've seen that before. So the problem I see is that too many people want to be the part of the body that we can actually see. I want to be the eyes, because I want to see everybody that come in and see if they meet my standard. I want to be the finger so I can point fingers at everybody. I want to see, you see where I'm going? I want to be the mouthpiece. I want to tell everybody what they need to do when it's already in the Bible. But, what about the unseen members? What about those body parts that you can't even survive with if they're not functioning? You never seen nobody that say, okay, well, I'm going to be the heart. What happens when it stops, the heartbeat stops beating inside? You can't see the heart, but everybody in here, your heart is pumping right now, right? What about the spleen? You don't even talk about that, but it functions. If we start functioning as a body where even if the mouthpiece says something that we don't agree with in the church, and we just say, you know what, I'm going to be a part of the body, because it's not about me being seen, me being heard. It's about the body still functioning because I'm an integral part of that body. That's what's relevant when it comes to the church. And if you keep that inside of you, the church will still function because we are the body of Christ, and members in particular. I don't care if I'm not an eye or the foot. That's in the Bible, y'all. Y'all can look it up. It's right in there. I don't care if I'm not that, but if I'm being something that's functional inside the body, it's still working. Amen. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Can y'all see that?
Yes, sir.
Can y'all see me?
Yes, sir.
But you can't see my heart. But if it's functioning, the church will continue to blossom and grow. But it's there. So you got to be there in some form or some capacity to make sure that each individual is helping Christ's bride, which is the body, which is the church, to continue to function.
So I really have a question, because I think millennials are not as in tune with the church, and I don't think it's any fault of your own. But I want to know from you, what do you consider, what makes a church relevant? Because I know some of you say, we got to be about the business of saving souls, and we got to do this and do that. But with a show of hands, how many of you really go out and door knock and really, how many of you write? So out of an audience of how many ever, 100 of you it was one of you that raised your hand. So really, what makes a church relevant? Because I believe even 10 years ago, the church looked different than what it looks like now. And what we were interested in back then, and what caused us to keep going, and Bible Bowls and Youth for Christ and National Youth Conferences and all that kind of stuff. Outside of the NYVMC and the youth conference, what makes church relevant to y'all, really? Because I think the church needs to know what makes the church relevant. I mean, think about your own home congregations. How many of the youth your age, young adult age, those who are not basically in youth programs, how many of y'all really participate in your worship? I'm kind of like really feeling some kind of way that you got up and said that you're trying to organize the ministries at your church. Right. That is unheard of. And you are how old? 19. It's really interesting, for one, because you're 19. It's interesting for two, because I'm thinking, where are the other ones? Where is everybody else? And how in the world do you get that responsibility? That speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. So to y'all, what makes the church relevant? Really, what makes a church relevant where you are excited to go outside of Sunday morning worship? I'm asking that. What is relevant?
I think having relationships and a sense of community. I know in this day of time, like you said, a lot of people don't feel church is relevant. And I've heard a lot of people say over the years, it's not about going to church, it's your relationship with God. Something my dad told me growing up, always told us, saying that, it's just like saying it's not about the relationship you have with your family, it's about the relationship you have with your Father. You gotta treat it like a family, like y'all been saying, and be able to actually have a sense of community and just brotherly love and just relationships like that. Because that whole idea, I'm sure you can be a quote unquote spiritual person by just so and so having a relationship with God, but you're not truly having a relationship with God if you're not having a relationship with the people around you.
So what keeps y'all engaged at your churches? Are any of you engaged at your churches? And I'm talking about not those that sang on a worship team or those that lead songs. How many of you are really engaged in your congregations? Really engaged. Look around the room. And those of you who didn't raise your hand, that means that's saying something. What is it about your church that you are not engaged? What is it about your church that keeps you from being disengaged? Right.
I think that's the problem, what you just said. You're asking, what is it about your church that's keeping you not engaged? It's not your church, it's you. You're afraid. What is it? The key word I was saying up here that needed to be highlighted was you. It needed to be capitalized and in triple bold. You. What are you doing? We all give all these excuses of, well, my church is, we go to a congregation with 50, sometimes maybe 60 people. Been that way for almost 17 years. Okay? And so there's a lot of older people there. We don't have worship like this at all. We still have one song leader, no other mics. That's just where we are. That's where we go. But it probably could have been different had our young people actually gotten involved and took some of this stuff back home. But they didn't, never have. It's not about our congregation, it's about you. And I think you give yourselves the excuse that it's my church, it's them old people, no. What are you doing? That was your question. So when Carol is asking you what keeps you engaged, I think it still goes back to what are you doing to make it relevant, make Christ relevant to you, because that's what it's really about. Not the congregation, but Christ. What makes him important to you?
I just want to piggyback off of what Ms. Mays is saying. A lot of it is an intake problem. It's the stuff that you're taking in. We watch so much TV, we listen to so much music that has negative connotations. The negativity in the music and the TV, we don't see how it affects us, but the things that we take in, just like the food that you eat. If you eat a lot of greasy, fatty foods, you're going to gain weight. If you want to stay slim and stay healthy and stay fit, you have to... No, but you have to take care of yourself. So you have to put good stuff in yourself. You're not going to sit there and drink a gallon of oil, but you'll drink a gallon of water because it's healthy for you. But the things that we watch on TV, we don't really see how they affect us, but they really do. Stuff that you watch on the news, I found I had to stop watching CNN. I love CNN to death, but it's poisoning my mind because all you see is the negative in it. You watch shows, Love and Hip Hop, whatever else is on, but that's how you get your reasoning for the way that you act. And you say, well, Carly Red did it, whoever did it, whatever. But that, I mean, it's all about the intake. So when you take in more of the word, you read more spiritually based books, you watch more. I mean, we have a whole network on YouTube. There's endless stuff that you can watch that can actually feed your soul instead of giving you the carnal mind that you have, and it'll change your life.
I think she said something key, because what she spoke to, I think the marketers and people on TV that's trying to make money from y'all anyway, and make money from us, they make it relevant to the people. So if sin is what you love, that's what they're gonna put. They're gonna fill it with sin. And I think a lot of times church is not relevant to us because we're not spiritual people who really have a relationship with God. So then if it's something spiritual, reading the Bible, studying, getting on a Devo and studying the Bible, that's not relevant to me if I'm not really seeking God. So I think that's something to think about. But I also wanted to say, it's like what Jonathan is doing. I think when God has given you a passion, I think you automatically going to get involved. And when that's your mindset and you're thinking about what you can do to have an impact, one thing I say, you take, he's 19. You guys are going to go to college. 22, 23-year-olds, you're graduating from college. And at my job, when they come out at 22, they become supervisors and they're running the business where we are at 22. And some of y'all not far from that. And that's within this age range, but sometimes in the church, the 22 years olds, they're just passing collection plates. Right. And that's the highest job that you can have or impact that you can have when you got 22 years olds that are running companies. And so I think for you to understand where you are at the age you are when it comes down to the Lord's church is important as well. And so compared to other people in other churches, it might seem rare and it might not seem not that big like a big deal that you're doing what you're doing. But I think in God's eyes, at age 19, we should be mature enough to be taking on some ministries and working with the leadership. All right,
I was just going to say, it's going to be quick. Just piggybacking off what Ms. Carroll said. To be relevant, I feel you have to be present. And so when she asked, like, who all door knocks, who all ministers, I didn't raise my hand. As far as door knocking, I don't think I've ever done that. I've never went and did anything like that. So I feel like in order to be considered relevant, because I looked up the definition, of course we all know what relevant means, but I just wanted to get appropriate to the current time period or circumstances of contemporary interest. Have you all ever been somewhere and somebody older tells you something and you blow it off, but when somebody in your age group or your generation says the same thing, you kind of oh, she think that way too? Might be some truth to that. It's who you can relate to. So I feel like our generation, we have to be present in order to be relevant. You can't be absent and expect to stay relevant because they can, I'm not trying to limit it, but they can only reach, it takes different things for different people. Right. So it's just we got to step up and be present. And just be present. Sure.
A little taller than
take the
most
mic
people.
I don't think it go down.
I do agree with a lot of things that everybody has been coming up and saying, but to your point specifically, Ms. Mays, you said that the key word that you saw in what Ms. Carroll was saying was that you. It's not about what the congregation is doing, but it's about you. And I wouldn't say that the church is not relevant because in everything you can see church. People always talk about, oh, well, you're that church kid, or you're that, and you're this, you're that. It may be in a negative connotation, but they do know that the church is there. And when you're taking it to say it's not relevant, you're saying it's you, I would say yes to a point that it is us, but then at the same time, it also is our congregation as well. Because us being the generation, our generation, we move. We're all about go, 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 go. We like to do this here. And the one thing you said was, how many of us door knock? Alden raised his hand, and I commend him. But I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. That's not something I'm gonna, because it's number one, it's not in my character. But what I will do is if I'm at school If I'm at school and I'm talking to somebody and they're like, man, yeah, I'm just going to struggle. Well, why don't you just come to church with me? No, I'm not door knocking, but I am telling that person that God has affected me in some way, and I want to share that message with you. But at the same time, when we get those people there, it's one thing getting them there, it's another thing trying to keep them there, and that's where the congregation plays its role. Yes, we as young people need to step up, but there are those, and we talked about it in our men's class that we had just a few seconds ago. There are those traditional people in the church that like it one certain way, and they got to have it like this. Like you said, you still have one song leader, no more mics, and that's something that we as a church and as a people, as a community, we need to grow to the ever-changing society that we live in today so that we can affect and we can reach more people and keep them, and not just having the church be viewed negatively and not relevant, and have the church become back to what it was and being positive. And that's about it.
Well, let me say this. If you notice, when I asked how many of y'all door knock, my hand didn't go up either. Okay, and I asked that because I said door knock because I just know that millennials do things differently than what we do. You're right, millennials ain't finna door knock because y'all found the easier way to do it. It's easier to go on social media. It's easier to send out an email. It's easier it's easier to do it how y'all do it because that's how y'all relate to one another. Back in the day, that's what they did. They door knocked. They did all of that. Even if you look at the Crusade for Christ that goes on, the average person that attends it, the average age of the person that attends it is about 60 years old. Now watch what's gonna happen. I ain't a prophet, but I will predict in about 10 years it's gonna be in trouble or less. Because millennials are not engaged in things like that. They do things differently. And if we don't start pulling y'all in, trying to figure out how y'all do it, and what appeals to y'all, we're gonna be in trouble. That's why I was saying how many of y'all engaged. Not many of y'all are engaged in your congregations. If you ain't singing in the choir or doing something like that, many of y'all are not engaged. Y'all are not doing outreach things. Y'all are not doing things like that. So what is it, and when I ask, what does it take, what does relevance mean to you? What does it look like to you for you to get engaged in your congregation? What is that? What does that look like? And if y'all don't know, then don't expect the older people to know, to tell you, because we don't know. So if y'all can't tell us what it's gonna take to keep y'all engaged in the church, then, and Sierra, you're so right. If you ain't present, the church can't do it. But y'all got to figure out what it's going to take to get y'all engaged, and then go to your leaders or whoever at their church and try to implement those things to get engaged. Brother, you are in a very powerful position at your church. You know that, right? I don't even know if you know how much power you have for them to even put you over organizing 25 ministries, and for you to even see that only 3 of them are relevant. You're in a good position. Yes.
Malik, you said something that I really liked when you said how you ask somebody to come with you, but how do you keep them? Right. That still goes back to it's your friend. So if it's your friend coming and you invite, because some people, y'all do that, right? You invite people to come to services with you from time to time, and you sit there and text with them. You sleep during the services and you invited your friend. How are we going to keep them engaged and wanting to come? How do you keep your friend coming? Right. By being present yourself. That's what I mean by you. Of course, we as a congregation definitely have an impact. We definitely do. But if you invite your friend, you should be the one responsible for trying to live a life to keep them coming. So I love that you said that. How do you keep them? That's a good point.
All right, we're going to give these 3 the opportunity to say what they're going to have to say, and we're going to have to wrap up. This has been awesome, but go ahead.
I think we're more so focused on the actual people than focused on the word. Like, we're not putting emphasis on understanding what the word is actually talking about. And I know I don't usually go to Bible study. It's too early for me. That's what I say. But I can understand the Bible by reading it alone in my room rather than going to church service and hearing the preacher preach whatever he does. And I think preachers, like, I get amazed at how preachers can understand the word and not just focus on one scripture and be like, okay, this is that, and then I can post like a phrase because he says something good. What was that? See, I have a lot going on in my mind. But that's just basically what I'm thinking is we're not focused on the word enough. We don't understand what it's talking about. We can point out one scripture and be like, okay, this is that, but we don't know the whole context of it. That's it.
Amen. And I think that was well said. I think when you get into God's word and understanding what God is teaching and then it becoming a part of who you are, I think that helps you to, something about you and something that's in you, the Christ that's in you will make people want that. And so it's not all about the church building church. It's about you as an individual. If your friends see you're changed and your life is blessed because you're in Christ, you are a member of the church and that's going to impact them. So I think that's another thing going along with what she's saying. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ruby. I'm from North Carolina. When I think of people, being impacted by the Jesus in you, I think that as far as, the church being relevant, I think that we're still thinking of the building way too much, I feel like every time, you have talked about the church, the building keeps coming up. So I feel like when you try to invite somebody to church, it's like, okay, why are you trying to make your building relevant in my life? I'm not trying to make the building relevant in my life. I'm trying to make God relevant in my life. So I feel like when people have problems, they don't go to the church. They go to the hospitals. They go to the counselors. We have counselors on campus, and that's where they take their problems. But I know some people that are close to me, they'll come to me with their problems, and I'll be like, all right, let's have a Bible talk or something like that. We have Bible talks on Fridays sometimes during the semester. So they'll go there, and they'll feel more comfortable there, and then they're able to go to worship service where they're able to learn more, be a part of the culture of, or the community of worship service. Because worship service to me is for the saints, it's for the people that are already in God's community, to praise God, So when I bring my friend, oh my gosh, I have a friend named Tashim, and he'll come to worship service, and it's like a dimming, because he doesn't really know about how to praise God. He doesn't know about the word, It's like I don't know. So yeah, but I think that once we're okay with having things outside of the church building, possibly Bible classes, that don't always have to be in the sanctuary, I think care groups, some people have care groups, they'll go to their homes and they'll have Bible classes or whatnot. But yeah, I think that eldership, not eldership, but I think that some elders also have problems with taking the attention away from the building, because then I guess that taps into funds, I don't know. But
Right. Y'all give her a hand. Real quick, Sister Janaya, and we're gonna be getting out of here. I'll get them last thing. Go ahead.
I'm PD, but I think that would make coming to church more relevant would be more ministries, because I know like at our church at Southside it's like music ministry based. So like if you come, like you might stay coming for like the singing because you like the singing, but if you don't sing, like once you're in there, you're in there. So like what's next? I guess people that come get thrown off because of that sometimes, because all we focus on is that one ministry. And I do think, like, even like me, like, I love to sing, like, singing is my thing, but like when we have more ministries and like the CASA ministry, yeah, with the drug abuse ministry, reaching out, like she said, like going out, this not always just in the sanctuary, but doing other things that can bring people closer. I think that'll have more of an impact on other people than just being so focused on one. Yeah.
Amen. I'm going to let Brother Frank have the last word. And then we're going to shut this down. Go ahead.
I just want to ask a real quick question, or just put it out there. I don't think we need to raise hands for it or nothing like that, but how many of y'all felt that you had to be just kind of drugged to church where you're a member of? You just got to, mom has to get on you several times to wake up out the bed because you really just don't want to go. Anybody out there feel like, man, I don't feel like doing this? That's because the word relevant, we're talking about relevant, and I know Jesus said it, set your affections. Our affections are not on things above because we're distracted by so many things in the world. And that cell phone has our mind just engrossed. At pretty much, I always say about 90%. Is that a good percentage? About 90, 95, Brother Jarrett said 95. So, our affections are not on things above. If it were, then the relevance in the church would be there inside of you. So instead of you being drugged to church, some of us, the church should be like Jesus taught in parables. The church should be like a drug to you. Y'all missed that.
All right. All right, so Jonathan Gibbons, he had 10 seconds to say something. And it better be good because we don't want to have to fix nothing you say wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. I think when we think about church and we talk about, of course, ministries are important, but when you bring somebody to church and we talk about all these things that we want to do, the first thing that we see is we come to church on Sunday. Catch that real quick. That's the first thing we do. We don't always assume that church has programs. The first experience is they come to church. And so I think a lot of the problems that I see is a lot of preachers and ministers are so philosophical, but they're not practical. And so they want us to try to understand the word, and they talk in all these, well, thou art if, thereth. They do all that, but they don't actually tell you how this relates to your everyday life. That's all I'm going to say.
And what he told me a minute ago was the ministries that they had him look at, his leadership came to him because he went to his leadership. Wow. He said he saw something and they said help. And so the thing is, a lot of us, we don't put ourselves out there to be necessary. The Bible says your gift, I don't have a spot. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Your gift will make room for you. Proverbs 18, your gift makes room. We looking for rooms and trying to fit the room, but the gift that you have makes the room. And a lot of times we try to fit a mold that we weren't even made for. If you just operate in your gift, God will create the avenue, He'll create the support, He'll create the funds, He'll create the opportunities, He'll create the timeline so that things can happen. Like Peter was saying, we need more ministries. Well, if you have a passion and you see something, you may be the person that God wants to use to make it happen. But we're waiting for somebody else to create it so we can step into it. Because sometimes we don't want to put the work into creating new things. We just want to live off somebody else's vision and not cultivate our own. And that's the reason why we're not comfortable, is because we are trying to fit ourselves into somebody else's purpose. This is somebody else's thing. And you ever put a shoe on the wrong foot? I hope not lately, but you put your shoe on, it don't feel right because that's not what that foot was made for. That shoe was not made for that foot. And some of us, we're in the wrong place at the wrong time doing something that God did not make us to do. And when it doesn't feel good, we stop because we think we don't have purpose. You have purpose. You have just been operating in the wrong one. Operate in the gift that God put in you, and God will create the opportunities for it to be successful.
Amen.
Real quick, I think it all starts with your connection to Christ and your relationship with Christ. When I was y'all's age, I was guilty of riding on my parents' relationship. And a lot of times I went to church because my parents made me go to church, not because I wanted to go. And had they not woke me up, I would have stayed right in the bed. But I didn't develop my own relationship until I got to college. That's when I developed my own relationship with the Lord. And I think that's the issue. A lot of y'all don't have y'all's own relationship outside of your parents, your granny, or whoever else forces you to go to church. You got to get your own.
Amen. Y'all put y'all hands together. NYVMC panel discussion. I want to say, y'all young people did an excellent job. They did all right, but the things that y'all brought today was off the chain. So y'all give yourselves a hand. I see a lot of growth. And a lot of things y'all said we needed to hear. So that we can do things a little better. At this time, what we're going to do is we are going to break into our making the group, right? And we're going to combine it with eating lunch. So, what time is it now? 12:22. Oh, we're gonna rehearse at what time?
Rehearsal will start, we're looking to start at 2, which means we have an hour and a half before rehearsal starts. So we need, you gonna do it the way you said?
Maybe so, if you think so, if that's a good idea.
Groups 1, 2, 3, and 4. When we leave out of the sanctuary, y'all go immediately to lunch. As soon as you off, and then after you finish eating, you go to your making the group room. So I'm sure facilitators, you want to get them done quickly. As soon as y'all are done, the next 4 will come in, and then you'll do that.
Hey,
so let's make this quick.
Give them times. What time is it now?
So by 1 o'clock, room 1, 2, 3, and 4. Room 1, 2, yeah, those are all the ones that are upstairs. Are y'all listening to me? Because you'll mess around and miss out on your food. Rooms 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go to lunch immediately from here. Then at 1 o'clock, no later than 1 o'clock, maybe sooner, but no later than 1 o'clock, the other 4, groups 5, 6, 7, and 8, you'll come in. And then I need y'all back in the sanctuary at 2 o'clock. Does that make sense? We're good?
Yeah, what time are they does the second group need to go in to eat?
1.
Okay.
Say pray. Yeah.
All right, let's pray. Let's pray for the food at this time. Let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, we come to you once again thanking you for all your blessings. Father, we thank you for these young people and the things that we've shared on this morning, and just how even our older members have poured into these young people. Father, just pray that we'll all grow from the things that we've discussed, and Father, that we'll have a closer walk with you and have a more impactful ministry as we move forward. Father, we pray, thank you for this food that we're about to receive. Father, we thank you for just allowing us to have this event. Father, just pray you bless everything that we do from this point on as we rehearse and get ready for tomorrow and for this evening. Father, just pray that we'll just have an impact in this community, in this area, Father, in a powerful way. In your Son, Jesus Christ's name we do pray, amen.
Amen.
Hey, what group am I?
Groups 1, 2, 3, and 4, go to the fellowship hall. Groups 5, 6, 7, 8, go to your making the group rooms. Eat quickly, quickly, quickly. Don't be wasting time. No more wasting time.
Group 5, I think what color are we?
If your group was upstairs, you are 1, 2, 3, or 4. If your group was upstairs,
Group 5,
you are 1, 2, 3, or 4.